Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's Retirepreneur Deep Dive. If you've spent decades building a career, you've also built up this incredible library of wisdom. So today, we're going to dive into how you can turn all that experience into an impact that really lasts. I want to kick things off with a pretty big question. Just think about this for a second. What if everything you've done so far, every challenge you've overcome, every success you've had, was really just the warm-up for what you're meant to do next? It's a powerful thought, right? It totally reframes retirement not as an ending, but as a brand new beginning. And here's why that question is so incredibly urgent. Get this. Research shows that a staggering 85% of institutional knowledge just evaporates when experienced professionals retire. All that wisdom, those hard-won lessons, it's just gone. This isn't just some random number. It's a massive, massive loss of potential. We call this the 85% problem, and what it really highlights is this huge gap. See, on one hand, when you talk to folks over 55, they consistently say their biggest desire is to make a real, lasting difference. But on the other hand, the reality is most of that wisdom just walks right out the door with them. And this is so personal, isn't it? We're talking about your decades of experience, figuring things out when there was no playbook, innovating on the fly. All of that is an unbelievably valuable asset. But right now, it's at risk of just disappearing. The good news, though, it absolutely doesn't have to be that way. So, okay, enough about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. The key to bridging this gap, to making sure your impact lives on, is what we call a legacy project. This is how you make sure your influence doesn't stop when your career does. So, what in the world is a legacy project? Well, it's not just about volunteering here and there or mentoring one person. The key word to focus on here is system. It's about building something, a framework, a resource, a community that can help hundreds, even thousands of people solve their own problems long after you've stepped away. It's about creating something that truly outlasts you. And this quote from William James just hits the nail on the head. The great use of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it. The most meaningful work we do isn't always the stuff that paid the bills. A lot of the time, it's what we choose to build with the wisdom that career gave us. So how do you actually build one of these? I know, it can feel like a huge, overwhelming idea. But really, it all boils down to a pretty simple 3-pillar framework. Let's break it down together. Okay, pillar number 1 is all about making the intangible tangible. All that experience, all those lessons, they live inside your head, in your stories. The very first step is to get it out of your head and turn it into something real, documented assets that other people can actually pick up and use. And here's the game plan. First up, take inventory. Just ask yourself, what are the problems people were always coming to you to solve? Next, build a story bank with specific real-world examples. Then, from those stories, you extract the big lessons, the patterns, the core principles. And finally, you just choose your format. For instance, a retired operations exec didn't just write some dry manual. He created a playbook for leading people through change, focusing on how to rebuild trust. That is documented wisdom. All right, so once you've documented your wisdom, the second pillar is all about scaling your impact. Look, one-on-one mentoring is amazing, but it's limited by your time. You can only be in one place at once, right? A true legacy project needs a system that can reach hundreds or even thousands of people. The main goal here is to remove yourself as the bottleneck. And you do that by creating frameworks that people can follow on their own, by developing tools that help them figure out what they need, and by building communities where they can help each other. Think about the mentor who turned her coaching for women in male-dominated fields into a structured online program. She now impacts hundreds every year, not just a few she could see one-on-one. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most crucial pillar, making it last. A real legacy project creates value whether you're there steering the ship or not. See, the goal isn't to create another permanent job for yourself. It's to build something that can actually grow beyond you. So how do you make sure it's sustainable? Well, first, you design for independence with things like self-serve resources. You plan for succession right from day one. You find sustainable support, maybe through partnerships. And finally, you build in room for evolution so the project can change and adapt over time. A perfect example is the retired educator who built an online resource center for new teachers. It's now run by volunteers and used all over the country, a project that truly took on a life of its own. Which brings us to our last and honestly most empowering section. You might be listening to all this thinking, this sounds great, but why now? Well, the truth is, at this stage of your life, you are uniquely, perfectly positioned to build something that lasts. You have 3 incredible advantages working for you right now. First, you have perspective, the kind that only comes from decades of being in the trenches. Second, you have freedom. You're not driven by the pressure of climbing some corporate ladder anymore. And finally, you have clarity, the ability to zero in on what truly, genuinely matters. That combination makes this your most powerful season for building a legacy, hands down. So if there's one thing you take away from our chat today, let it be this. Your decades of experience are not just your personal history. Start thinking of it as your intellectual property. It's a priceless asset that has the power to create a lasting impact for so many people who are facing the very challenges you've already solved. So really, the question isn't whether you have something valuable to share. Of course you do. The only question left is how you will invest that asset. So I'll leave you with that thought. Your experience is an invaluable asset. How will you choose to invest it? Thanks so much for joining me.